All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to another Dead by Daylight patch breakdown video, where today I'm just going to be going through the patch that was released earlier today, 9.6.0, talking about a lot of the changes, the ones that I think are the most significant, glossing over a lot of the ones that I think aren't quite as impactful overall, and basically giving my impressions of these patch notes. I am also working on another video essay. I'm about a third of the way done with it right now, and that should hopefully be up within the next week. And I'll, again, just be kind of intermittent here and there until August, basically. But, this is just how things are going to be for content for a little while and trying to figure things out otherwise. So, starting off on the patch notes, Legion has been re-enabled, though Tataryu already said that the Legion is broken again, so I don't know how much I can really trust this. And this is a really good line here that also just wasn't really seen in the PTB notes previously, and that is that map weighting has been adjusted in order for maps to have an equal chance of spawning, but realm repeat prevention remains in effect. So basically meaning that you're not likely to go to maps that are on realms that only have one or two very select maps on it. Like the reason we've been seeing Toba, which I know that the Devark Deepwood shared with Nostromo, but they're considered different offerings, so you saw them individually a lot in the game. Hawkins, Larry's, all these sort of maps. The reason why you saw them so often was because the map weighting was adjusted incorrectly to favor locations that had fewer maps, or realms that have fewer maps in them in total. So that's pretty cool. Then we got the big old diminishing returns update. Identical survivor and killer modifiers granted by powers, items, perks, and offerings will now be reduced progressively as they become stacked. So they only apply diminishing returns only within their role, which is negative speed action modifiers and positive skill check chance modifiers. So this means that any sort of like negative action speed that you are inflicting on a survivor does not stack with their negative action speed. So I remember previously I had showcased that thing where self-care within Colrophobia actually had a slightly faster heal with diminishing returns because the negative heal speed was stacking across the two different roles. But now Colrophobia will affect the survivor and they'll be affected by the negative effect of self-care, so they'll still be negatively affected that way. It doesn't stack additively in the reverse direction dependent on the negative effect overall. And then excluded entirely from diminishing returns or modifiers granted from add-ons, which is really good for anybody who enjoys Clown, anybody who enjoys Legion, anybody who enjoys Hag, like Chase Hag with the waterlogged shoe. I was going to say Clag, because it's like a clog hag. Anything that, grants haste in those regards, for example, that won't be included in the diminishing returns. You can still run it with batteries included, no-ed, all these sort of other perks from here. And then they made it so that it's 100% and then 50%. So it's the same value that we had from the PTB, all the way down to 5% on the fifth value and up, so you can't keep, stacking this. And then game manual updated to include information on diminishing returns. I think that there should also be a side note on this, maybe, that this perk has diminishing returns or affected by diminishing returns, like a little extra added note in the perk, so that when somebody sees that in the perk description, they'll see, oh, this perk is affected by diminishing returns. What does that mean? So then they go to the manual instead of having to be like, why am I not getting the full value, and then having to scroll through the manual afterwards. I think that getting information out initially and saying, when you're looking at a perk and it clearly says this haste effect is affected by diminishing returns, then people can figure out what it means from there. One before play while you wait update. This is something that had been requested. I remember seeing Slender Killer being a person who was very big advocate of this. But basically, like when you're in 1v4 now and you're searching for matches as a killer player, you can now play a game as survivor while holding your place in the killer queue. So you're not sitting, especially during 2v8 queues, which 2v8 is out today, and again, we'll get around to that when we do. You're not sitting around in 6-minute killer queues waiting for one game that lasts for 5 minutes. You're going to be able to play a survivor game in between. And so then that way you can bounce between the two roles and continue playing consistently. And I think this is a really good change, especially with 2v8 being out. And as we know, 2v8 absolutely murders killer queues when it's out. Progress bar update is for interactions, has a new animation to reinforce the speed differences. We did see this during the PTB as well, where there were like little yellow arrows and red arrows. Not like red arrows in a thumbnail kind of thing, but when you're repairing faster, you have like little arrows in the progress bar to show that it's going faster or slower overall. And previously, color was dependent on the individual contributor. So this like the reason why they point this out is because when you were repairing a generator with another player, yes, the generator was going faster, but it was highlighted in a red bar, which was confusing. But the red bar in that sense indicated that you were being affected by a negative generator efficiency effect. But the generator will still go faster anyway. Does this mean that people will be more likely to double up on gens? I think newer players might be more likely to, because they'll just see like, oh, yellow bar means good. And it'll just take a little bit of like reteaching macro to say, hey, don't double up on gens initially to start, because it's much better if you just split generators at the beginning of the game anyway. But I think it's cool. This is just like a good visual consistency thing. Really big solo queue buff that we had seen, which is visible team perks. So now when you go to your match details screen, you can see the perks, items, and add-ons and offerings of all of your teammates. And then the killer will now be shown to all survivors when any survivor enters a chase or any survivor loses a health state. Now, any survivor losing a health state does not include if the survivor loads into the game with no mither. We had confirmation from Mandy at Behavior that this is the case, and had second confirmation, I think, from either Jan or Mandy. I'd have to double check on who specifically, who said that this does not include if you bring like no mither plot twist and reveal the killer immediately, because they don't consider using no mither and plot twist. That's like going into the dying state. That's why it activates corrupt intervention, but it doesn't count as losing a health state, and so therefore it doesn't reveal the killer. At least it shouldn't. I don't know. In practice, we'll have to see if that actually is the case or not, and do some testing here and there. But it's a very niche, specific example in that regard. And so any survivor enters a chase, any survivor loses a health state, that's when the killer is revealed. And there's just really good stuff for solo queue information overall. Like if someone's getting chased across the map and I have to think like, or I can't hear what killer it is, and oh, I see someone's lost a health state over there. I wonder what killer that could be. And then I see, oh, it's Oni. I should look out for when he gets his charge available. Usually by the time that someone enters the chase, you'll probably figure it out. And if I was in a Discord call and with someone who was getting chased, I'd be able to figure that out anyway. They'd be like, oh, shoot, I'm getting chased. It's a plague. And even then, like, plague has her fountains. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You'll figure out what killer it is in the menu now at the regular pace that you would as if you were in a Discord call with people anyway. So I don't think that this really changes a whole lot. It just makes solo queue a little bit more bearable, a little bit better communication with the limited communication options we have in the game presently. Elements can be hovered to display their descriptions, so that's like killer powers if you're not familiar with the power, or perks if you're seeing an unfamiliar one. And the loadout of the opposite team is not displayed until the match is over following the final screen behavior, which makes total sense. I think that is wonderful. It'll be the same way that it always has been, and I'm very happy for this. Spectator mode, now you can hover over things. You used to not be able to do this. You just have to kind of go off of knowledge and be like, ah, yes, in this comp game that we're commentating, where we see pain res and agitation and all of this, and people who might be brand new to watching comp and everything would be like, what the hell is a pain res? What's an agitation? I don't know what these are. So being able to actually hover over those and see those effects, and maybe even see some niche status effects that you've not really seen all that often because of rare killers. Now it allows you to look at everything, which is really cool. New aura customizations, so just some more consistent things, separating breakable walls from pallets, killer objects from any sort of interactable items, highlight elements like the xenomorph control stations, or wouldn't that also include highlighted generators potentially? If you like kick it with machine learning or something, or eruption. Anyway, that's pretty cool. I just think that like having more customization is always good. Being able to make the game more clear for more people is going to be so incredibly useful for all skill levels of players, and it has very minimal effect on gameplay overall. It just helps. It's just a helpful thing, and I'm very happy that that's an option now. Killer updates. The Blight got that big old nerf, which decreased the default movement speed to 4.4 meters per second. Breaking down pallet now reduces the tokens to 2 below maximum and resets the token recharge to 0%. So if you were like 85% all the way to recharging all your tokens when you break a pallet, you then drop down to 3 or down to 1 if you're running the iridescent tag. But you drop down to 3, and then if you were at 85%, it goes down to 0 on that token recharge, and that includes basic break and special break killer actions. So that's with whether you kick it normally or whether you use your power to break it or whether you break it. I guess, I don't know, dissolution will have to be something to test with that, actually, because if someone breaks a pallet with dissolution while you're playing Blight, does that take tokens away? Does that reset your... That would be interesting to to see. And then they updated the power description to reflect that change, which is nice. And then we had these changes. The nothing changed the doctor. The nothing changed to the ghost space. This change, apparently, Epidemi's been not particularly enthused by this because he's like, wow, I don't know, like the 0.1 meters per second, it doesn't sound like it's a whole lot, but it actually makes a world of difference on the character now. But, you know, Epidemi and Hens were talking in the creator program Discord briefly about, you know, what is actually beneficial to Bubba and his low mobility overall, and does this make a significant enough difference for the average player playing Bubba versus somebody like Epidemi, who's clearly very experienced with the killer overall. So, interesting discussion to be had there. I think this just kind of like buffs him up a little bit, gives a little bit of a love tap in the right direction for casual players, especially because Bubba's just not in a great spot overall, like C tier, maybe, at best. Even if, like, people like Epidemic can make him look good, and even if I can make Deathslinger look like a better killer than he actually is, you have to understand the content creators are usually a very niche selection of displays of skill on specific characters. They're not going to be usually the average kind of player. They have dedicated a lot of time to making this character work. And so if Epidemi says that this makes him actually really strong, even if it's just 0.1 meters per second, then I'm going to believe the guy who has way more hours on the character than I do. Demogorgon. Slightly increased movement speed while shredding, increase the shred turn rate, which is incredible, so you can like redirect slightly. It's going to be harder to dodge now. And increase the duration of undetectable after traversing the upside down to 12 seconds, which is, again, these are all changes that were in the PTB, and I think that nobody objected, so these are ones that are coming alive, and I'm quite happy with this as well, because Demogorgon being a bit sneakier is quite fun. And I don't think they adjusted the add-ons either to affect this, because you have that one, is it the Deer Lung add-on? I'm afraid I don't know Demogorgon add-ons as well as I should, but there's an add-on that increases the duration of undetectable when you come out of the portal by 50% or something. So this would go up to 7.5 seconds. Now this goes up to 18 seconds, which is insane. So you can like perma undetectable Demogorgon maybe if you run that. That's kind of fun. KMD is also very happy about this increased movement speed while charging Reign of Darkness by 0.2 meters. Initially, I thought, when I had initially looked at this change, my thoughts were that, oh, like the kind of tapering slowdown that you have when, because you press M2 and then you slow down to from 4.6 to 4.0. And then when you release the power, it goes from 4.0 up to 4.6, so, you know, over a slight duration of time. And so or 3.8 previously, now 4.0. And so I kind of figured like, the difference of 0.2 meters per second in that regard really don't make a whole lot of difference, because that's also the difference between 4.4 and 4.6. And across a 10-minute match, you'd only ever get like 120 meters extra of distance, which technically is cross-map distance one time as a 4.4 versus 4.6 killer, but realistically what I was saying is that this didn't seem like it would make a lot of difference. But KMD again was also saying, the Dredge guy was saying that this does actually make a lot of difference, and I can see how it does. It makes it so that you can rotate around an obstacle a lot faster, and if somebody leaves, well, you've lost less distance than you would have before by getting the extra 0.2 meters while in Reign of Darkness, and then from there you can follow up on a hit pretty easily because you haven't lost distance by actually using your power, at least not quite as badly. So requires a bit more precision from the survivor side, and this is secretly like one of the better buffs in the patch because nobody plays the Dredge anyway. The Mastermind, decrease recovery time of Violent Bound and charge time to decrease to 5 seconds, which is cool. Increase chainbound window to 2.5, so you don't have to rely on egg quite as much. And yeah, they didn't change the Demogorgons add-ons at all. They nerfed the Nurse's Heavy Panting, which is great. I'm actually happy about this change because this was like carrying a lot of bad Nurse players. And really powerful and really good Nurse players too. Walleye's Matchbook, I don't know why we're nerfing this. I skipped over some changes here, though, so let me go back up. Skull Merchant, new power icons. Okay. Nothing. Unknown, the lingering vision duration actually is going to be a pretty massive effect, especially because now you have a little bit more cooldown, a little bit less linger vision duration, which allows you to actually hide and play a bit more hit and run with this killer, which is going to be really nice. Animatronic, decreased time to call things back. We went over all of this. Battery consumption, it's not like a bad change. It's just a change that doesn't do anything. And then they made it, the power input grab is just so much nicer than, oh, there's somebody who has Dead Hard and I've pressed attack and now I've accidentally swung into their Dead Hard when I was given the prompt to grab the axe out of their back. This is just nice. I think that just having this as power input now makes it so that, oh, the power prompt disappeared, but I haven't accidentally attacked that person that has Dead Hard. I'm actually getting an axe out of their back now. And then add-on updates, yeah, you know, we kind of went over them. I kind of hate whenever they like change a base kit thing and then make it so that the add-on that was affecting it directly gets nerfed as well, because now you just make the add-on obsolete. So now you don't run Gold Egg anymore, maybe. I don't know. I'd have to ask somebody who plays Wesker to tell me if this is any good or not. Loose Crank, increasing movement speed between the first and second Viler and bounds is kind of interesting. Because you can hold the power for a little bit longer without having to run egg, and so now you have increased movement speed between the two bounds, which allows you to rotate a little bit better. Because of the collision changes, you can't rebound quite as easily as you used to be able to. And so, you know, these are just some like kind of base kit touches that make him a little bit more manageable, perhaps. Animatronics add-ons, again, don't know why we're doing this. Axis panel getting buffed is cool. This is fine. I think Axis panel is already kind of like a... It was good when it revealed survivors of 4 meters. Now getting 6 meters within security doors makes it even better, especially on smaller maps. So we'll have to see how that goes. Survivor perk updates. Now, this is one that I want to talk about a little bit more, because it went from being whenever another survivor is hooked, you just gain tokens passively. But now it's whenever you unhook another survivor, you earn a token up to a maximum of 3. When repairing you hit a great basic skill check, you spend all tokens, and for each token spent, the generator gains 5% permanent progress. So whenever you hit a great skill check, you gain 5% permanent progress, which means that if you unhook 2 survivors and you go back to a generator and you hit a great skill check, you gain a brand new part. But this is reliant on being able to go and out of your way to unhook somebody, and then you have to find a way back to a generator, and then you have to get a skill check, and then you have to hit a great skill check to then get a brand new part. And the only time that you ever get a brand new part is if you save 2 survivors. So if you save 4 survivors in a game, I mean, that's kind of impressive, sure. And I think that this is a perk that now can be paired with a really powerful bunch of effects. You can run this with and a perk build that I came up with just on the spot earlier was you run Fast Track, you run Sprint Burst, because Sprint Burst is just still broken as fuck. You run Fast Track, Sprint Burst, Self-Preservation, because Self-Preservation gives you Elusive for 30 seconds whenever the survivor is hooked, and Babysitter. So another survivor gets hooked, you gain Elusive for 30 seconds, so you leave no evidence, no scratch marks, no nothing as you go for the unhook. Then when you're in the end of that 30 seconds, you unhook, and that person now has Babysitter, and they get to go across the map, and you've safely unhooked them because you didn't leave any indication that you were nearby the hook. And then on top of that, you can Sprint Burst away if you have it charged and 99 and ready to go, and then run to a generator and get tokens done. So it's like, it's a perk that actually slots into a very altruistic build together, but you have to have a very specific build for it. You have to be competing with other people for unhooks now, and you have to hope that the killer doesn't proxy camp, doesn't chase you off of hooks, so that you can actually get value out of your fast track stacks overall. And there's a lot of variables now that becomes a lot more dangerous because of the active requirement of participation compared to what it was before. Granted, it's still a strong perk, like getting a brand new part off of unhooking two people, and if you're ignored and you go to a generator and you get a BNP for unhooking two people, great. But it has a longer activation requirement than it did before. Like Specialist, for example, has a very big activation requirement, and nobody runs that perk ever. And I think that, if I'm looking at some tweets that I saw earlier, I saw Sign was talking about how it's not as strong when it's stacked multiple times, because then you're not losing so many seconds whenever multiple people have the perk together. And then you go down to the next one that I had here, where 7 was saying that, getting a BNP from 2 unhooks is still be fun to play against. And this also just still punishes killer players who don't tunnel. But this is also assuming that people are going to be running fast track. I think the reason why people ran fast track so much before, which had some 900% increase in pick rate on Nightlight community stats, when we go to perks and builds, and we go to most used survivor perks, and we scroll down just ever so slightly, and fast track is number 10 at overall pick rate. And if we look at fast track's pick rate history, it was at below 1%, 0.93% in March, and then after the patch of 9.5, it went up to 8.34. In fact, according to the last 14 days, because this patch, only updates for like once a month, basically, in terms of overall patches and usage rates, it's now at 9.6 from below 1%. So it's a 900, almost a 1,000% increase overall in terms of use case scenarios. And that's because it would passively do something really strong. And if we look at the other perks that survivors use in the game, what do all these perks do? Well, passively, I get to see windows everywhere. Passively, I get an effect that over time, after a little cooldown goes down, I then get a free escape out a window. Passively, I get a bunch of buffs whenever I'm injured. Passively, everything, the only thing that's like active in some regards, and in big quote marks, is Dead Hard and Decisive Strike. But passively, you get access to both of these perks because they're activated after the killer hooks you. There's no actual like requirement that you have to have in order to go out of your way to activate it. So if we look at something that actually does take some time to activate, like, I don't know, we scroll down to Blast Mine. Like, Blast Mine is something that you still have to build up over time by actually touching a generator, but it still has a passive enough effect because you're going to be working on generators anyway. If we look at something like, I don't know, let me see if I can find a specific perk. Is there a perk that I can find in here that's like Appraisal? Something that makes it so that you have to go out of your way to interact with something that's not like a regular perk. This thing is a 0.32% appearance rate. If we scroll down to where it is at 0.32, it's 126 out of the total 170 perks in the game. Wow, yeah, treacherous gross. It's like nobody plays this game, this perk. Apocalyptic Ingenuity, very active effect because you have to go out of your way to go do something with it, and everything else that's like at the top of the survivor perks are going to be ones that you passively get value from, right? And so in the same way, I think that fast track in its more active effect is not going to be as preferred by survivor players because it's not something that they can passively activate. And when there's frustrations with, oh, the killer's still coming back to hook, or, oh, I didn't get any value because I didn't get any great skill checks and the generators were already done, or somebody else is running fast track and they were unhooking before me, and so I got no value off of my fast track. I don't think that this perk, especially in solo queue, is going to be as effective as it was before. And we are tending to make a mountain out of a molehill with, thinking this number bigger, wide number big now, and thinking that it's going to be as effective as it is. And it's really not. Like, I think that fast track is going to be annoying for a little bit because people are going to be testing this change after, I'm going to say this nerf, because I think it's a nerf. They're going to be testing this nerf after the patches come through. But in 2 months, we're not going to remember this. I don't know if you guys remember, like, Duty of Care. Like, Duty of Care, when that perk came out, Duty of Care makes it so that whenever you're healthy, if you get injured, all other survivors within a certain meter radius of you gain 25% haste for 6 seconds, I think. And everyone's like, oh my god, that perk's basically like giving sprint burst to everybody in AoE. But then, like, nobody runs that perk. nobody plays Duty of Care. Again, if we go to, Nightlight and we look at Duty of Care overall pick rate, it's like 0.19. It's less popular than Appraisal. Like, this is less popular than Appraisal. Its peak of popularity was like around when it came out. And that was it. So yeah, nobody runs this perk. And I think that Fast Track is a very similar thing. So that's my little ramble about Fast Track there. It'll be a change, but I don't think people are going to run it quite as often as you think. But it's still good that it's a strong perk, right? 2v8 changes. Deathslinger. Increased walk reload speed penalty from 0.7 to 0.8. So this is worded very weirdly, but basically whenever Deathslinger reloads, he is slowed down to 0.7 or 70% of his movement speed while reloading. Now this says that he's down to 0.8, so he's down to 80% instead of 70%. And they decreased the fire mist duration from 1.5 to 1.2. So they added Spit Polish Rag base kit. They added Spit Polish Rag base kit and basically made it so that you have rapid brutality while reloading. And that's it. So I'm not playing 2v8. I'm not interested. And Deathslinger changes are not enough for me to come back and say like, wow, this is something that really addressed the weaknesses of the killer in the game mode. Anyway, Oni, increased loss of demon mode uptime from 7 seconds to 10 seconds when downing a survivor. So this basically just makes it so that you can't chain slug quite as effectively anymore. Sure. Cages will now feedback the anti-camp bar. Once the anti-camp bar reaches maximum, the survivor will be given the choice to relocate. And upon relocation, the bleed out timer now pauses for 30 seconds, which is kind of insane. Basically, you get reassurance if you get camped. I don't think you have any reason to not choose to relocate in this case with the anti-camp bar. And then you get reassurance when you go across the map, which is kind of good. Like in some 2v8 situations, you'll get teleported to the side of the map that nobody's on, and the map is so massive that you just lose a hook state anyway. But getting reassurance because you've been camped out at the cages is kind of nuts. Look at the added Temple of Purgation and Ironworks of Misery. Sure, doesn't really matter. And then bug fixes. Let's see what we got in here. I've not looked at the bug fixes so far. Some of the perks, some of the changes I did look at ahead of time, as you can tell, obviously, with my Twitter pages that I pulled up. And I don't see fixed issue with survivors bots would walk slowly while in chase. Yep, that was something. There's sometimes like survivor bots don't expect getting sniped from so far away by Deathslinger, and they won't even struggle against the chain. It's kind of funny. They'll just be like, damn, all right, yeah, you got me, I guess. Is there anything? Control F, the Deathslinger. Okay, well, I know about that, and that's it. Okay, there's no bug fixes for Deathslinger, so we still have the chain bug issue. That's kind of annoying. Fixed an issue in Treatment Theater where projectiles can't go through a plant in the map. That was, I thought I was getting gaslit by that. You used to be able to shoot over the planter boxes, and then they changed it, and then they changed it back. Okay. Where Snug could not vault over the top of the main structure. Sure. Anyway, a lot of bug fixes. Where perk ultimate weapon activated on totem snuff, which is kind of funny. Yeah. A lot of little things to go through here. Changes from PTB now apply only within their role. Yeah, that was something that we saw. Visible team perks. So this is, I think this is all the stuff that we had seen in the PTB that were like, hey, this is kind of strange. Anyway, yeah, it's a little patch breakdown for y'all. 9.6.0. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to me ramble about this. Hope you guys, gain something from this, a different perspective, or are relieved that there's somebody who's not making a mountain out of a molehill on this this fast track change, because I really think that it's a perk that is not going to be seen quite as much as it has been. I mean, there are other elephants in the room to address, and I'm glad that the biggest one was talked about first in the form of fast track. And I'm very much looking forward to see what other changes they have going forward. And that is all I have for this breakdown. So thanks so much for listening to me ramble. I'll see you in the next video. And bye-bye.